Evening all on Play Chess and streaming to YouTube. Streaming live to YouTube. Okay, let's see. This should be starting pretty soon. Hi all. Just setting things up a bit more than usual today on this new computer. So we're going to have a look at the Fischer Spassky 1972 World Championship match held in Reykjavik. And for me, this is one of the most exciting World Chess Championships in chess history to date. So, game one. It was in an amazing story behind it. Is you know the kind of the peak of the Cold War. You know, this match became a representation of the Cold War between USSR and United States, held geographically, in the middle. You know, Reykjavik. A very, very interesting location. And having watched the original series of Star Trek, I can tell you that there's a lot of undertones in Star Trek about the Cold War. It affected everything. It touched everything, including chess, including Star Trek even. So this match, it kind of was very, very important, I think, for the USSR to establish, that their systems were really great, that they could exceed, massively achieve, and chess was their game. So Fischer was like a lone wolf compared to them, and but he trained. He played a lot against Russians before, so to get to this stage, finally, fantastic. So this very first game, he was playing black, and we're going to flip the board. I hope the audio and the board is okay, because I have to do a few setup things on the new machine. So, are they okay before we proceed? The audio and board, is it okay? Whoops. Okay, so if you just let me know on that. So that's yeah. So Spassky playing white played the move d4. So we have the move d4, and Fischer played knight f6. So a hypermodern first move, knight f6. After c4, he may have played the King's Engine a lot, but he also played the Nimzo Engine quite a lot as well. He plays e6, so it signals the Nimzo Engine defense. That's his weapon of choice in the first game. If knight c3, one would expect probably bishop b4, but I guess he could have played d5 as well. Knight f3, and here we're in Queen's Indian territory. When white plays knight f3, you're in Queen's Indian territory. That's why if you're trying to learn an opening against d4 and you want to learn the Nimzo Engine, you have to remember that actually you also have to learn the Queen's Engine at the same time. Thankfully, there are some similar, ideas of controlling the e4 square. Now here, this is the most solid thing you can do, is just occupy d5 with a pawn. So getting a grip on the e4 square. And now after knight c3, actually let's put on a bit of a kibitzer if we can. We've got Fritz 13 on the case tonight, because I haven't installed anything yet. So Fritz 13 will be our kibitzer tonight, just for checking things technically. But also let's check also live book. Now here, the most usual move in live book in this position is to play c6, actually, to get that famous, that very, very popular triangle, which has been heavily popularized in recent years as a very, very solid setup. Even though it seems not to do any favors to the bishop, that is the most popular move. Bishop e7 is also popular, but actually we get a kind of hybrid. So I think this is a hybrid between the Queen's Gambit declined and Nimzo. I think Rogozin's system. So e3, but I'm not entirely sure. So black castled now, bishop d3. And now, yes, there's a lot of tension being put in the center with this next move, c5. So we have this central tension here, and Boris Spassky just castled, knight c6, By the way, I should note I have actually met Boris Spassky in real life in Gibraltar. He was a guest of honour for one of the Gibraltar tournaments, so I'm really happy to have met him in real life once. Unfortunately, I never got to meet Fischer. It's a shame. Anyway, moving on. A3. Here, bishop takes c3 is actually the most common move. So this is a bit of a curious question. Why didn't Fischer just double the pawns? It's the most common move to play bishop takes c3. Just it looks, very Nimzo Indian-y thing to do. Game could continue a bit like this. This is a trodden path, and it's meant to be about equal, this sort of position, because although White's got the bishop pair, Black's got a very strong clamp on that e4 square. You can't imagine it being that bad for Black, this position. But yeah, Fischer actually chose maybe a slightly, you could call this a slightly rarer move, this bishop retreat. Tom Parker on stream has met Bobby apparently. Where was that, Tom? When did you meet him? When was that? So bishop a5. Okay, in this position, c takes d5 is the most common. H3 is also pretty popular. We see knight e2 in this game, so we're getting a little bit out of territory, but there's quite a few games with knight e2. It means, yes, the bishop can no longer double the pawns. Is the bishop rerouting really to this diagonal? It's an interesting rerouting maneuver. So now we see d takes c4, bishop takes c4. And often players with Black play c takes here. In the game, we get actually the move bishop b6, and this is really quite rare now. Bishop b6. Usually c takes d4 is played, so bishop b6. And this gives the opportunity for Boris to create a symmetrical pawn structure. So d takes c5. And as many of us have experienced, with the Anand, Carlsen matches, or other, recent matches, when we have a symmetrical pawn structure, it often guarantees quite a dull game, lifeless game. And maybe Fischer did want to kind of prove that he wasn't just going to be easily drawn with, even if Boris, created this kind of structure. And you'd think the first game, both players actually wouldn't mind just settling in. So it looks as though after queen takes d1, rook takes d1, bishop takes c5, there's nothing much really going on here. It's a symmetrical pawn structure, yeah, on both sides. Has White got any advantage here, potentially? White's got the addition of a3, which could be used for b4, and that's very useful sometimes for bishop b2. And in fact, that's made use of here. So perhaps you could say, yeah, White's got a little bit of temporary pressure here. The bishop goes to e7. It might have been more of a problem if the bishop had gone to b6 actually here. There is a requirement, of course, for accuracy in this position. If the bishop went to b6, we've got arrows and etc. on the board, but if the bishop goes to b6, I think this is actually probably threatening this now, something like this, doubling the pawns soon. So yeah, the bishop is ready with bishop e7, bishop b2, and we've got this problem bishop on c8. How is this dealt with? Actually, quite a neat tactic, coming to think about it, when looking at this now. Just actually, how do you solve this bishop on c8 problem? I guess most of you have seen this game before, and this is like a revision. But if I asked you that question, how you actually solve this c8 bishop problem, what would you actually do in this position to solve it? It's actually there are some very obvious answers you could give, but let me ask you. So 20 seconds here. How to solve the c8 bishop problem? So that's my question to you. What would you play here? Any ideas? I'm hoping you haven't seen this game before. Well, I think most of you have seen this game before. I mean, I think the most obvious idea would be to play b6. Okay, so Wilkman, yes, b6 and bishop e7. Anybody else? Is there any alternative? Rook d8 and then bishop d7 to e8. I'm glad you said that, Tom Parker, because you would think that bishop d7 is not possible, right? In this position, because it would lose a piece, right? Doesn't lose a piece, yes, because this was played. It doesn't lose a piece. You might think it loses a piece. The bishop takes f6. No, that's not the case. Bishop takes and then taking here, because actually the rook. Yeah, if we play this, we've got a problem with the rook on a1. So this is actually technically possible. You have to move the rook, and then we've solved it. We can put it on e8. So no need to waste any moves here preparing bishop d7. It's done in one move, bishop d7. So there's a bit of temporary pressure being placed on the black position here, and it's been dealt with quite clinically and accurately. Bishop d7 would seem to do the job. Fundamentally, there shouldn't be anything too exciting going on here with this symmetrical pawn structure. Rook ac1 was played. Okay, so white's position looks fairly harmonious. Rook fd8, but black is about to play something like bishop e8, and the bishops together like this. Okay, they look a bit squashed, but there's only one shared file here. If black can just exchange the rooks, surely this game's going into dust mode pretty soon. It's going to be grinding to dust. Knight ed4, we have an exchange of knights, and now actually a forcing move with that bishop a4, and we get even more simplification now. And you might think, okay, they could agree a draw here and carry on tomorrow now after these bishops come off. They've both lost their bishop pair, which adds some excitement. So with bishops actually of the same colour, and surely black hasn't got too many problems here. Rook takes d1, rook takes d1, and black could just challenge the rook, and we're just going into dust. No one's got a pawn majority potential particularly. We see rook c8 instead. Okay, well, d7 entry point is covered here, and now this move king f1. King seems okay to go into the center here and go on to e2. There's no light square bishop, no kind of possibility of an amazing tactic exploiting the king there on e2, and in fact the black king ventures towards the center as well with king f8. So king e2, surely agree a draw already. There's nothing much going on, is there? Knight e4, and now Boris basically says, look, let's exchange rooks then. Yeah, nothing going on at all. So we have rook takes c1, bishop takes c1, and now, okay, we have this move f6 being played, which might indicate a willingness to block this diagonal. If the bishop returns here, not to have to care about the g7 pawn. It also might even later mean e5 might be interesting to consider. Knight a5 was played here. A threat. How exciting. A threat in this position. It's protected. Knight d6. That's the end of that. They've only got two pieces each. How can this game be interesting or talked about? King d3 and now bishop d8. And this represents a significant structural threat. If that's taken, doubling the pawns, that'd be quite annoying. So the knight actually goes here, offering the exchange of knights. And in fact, yes, we're going into dust again. Bishop c7, and two knights come off. How possibly can this game be interesting? How in the world would this game ever be interesting? And is this bishop really threatening to take on h2 here? Well, Boris Spassky didn't think it's worth protecting that pawn. Surely that pawn's not on, right? So b5 was played. And here, I don't know. I don't know if this is chess in objective terms or psychological war, because I would have thought that Boris Spassky wanted to get into the match. They want to just put their feet on the table, under the table, somewhere, to start off the match with a friendly draw. But Fischer dispels that illusion. From a psychological point of view, this is a very, very interesting choice, this next move. Does anyone not remember this? Sorry, has anyone not seen this game? Can I ask that on YouTube? Has anyone not seen this game before? If you could be honest, have you not seen this game before? Just anyone? Because I'm just wondering about the suspense level. Oh, sorry, you mean yes, you've seen it before? I think I should express my question again. Alright, there's yes and no's. Okay. I'm hoping some of you haven't seen this game before. So the question, okay, I'll ask, for those that haven't seen this game before, would you consider taking on h2 here? So just be honest about it. Would you consider taking on h2? Or do you think your bishop's going to be trapped if it took on h2? Isn't that a poisoned pawn, this h2 pawn? Does it strike you as particularly poisoned or not? Alright, some of you haven't seen it. Alright, it looks on one level, right, terrible to take that pawn. And in fact, this is exactly what Fischer did. He actually did take this pawn. Now, it could have been part of a major miscalculation, but it is representative of a statement also. Even if it's not a major miscalculation, there's a statement being made here to Spassky. Look, I'm going to fight this match. Every game, you think you can just have a symmetrical pawn structure? No. And simplify and get rid of all the pieces. You know, the statement is made about a fight here with this move. But the calculations, okay, is it based on trying to get the bishop out? So we have g3, and we have this move which portrays h5 as though, hang on a sec, is the king really too far from the bishop to trap it? Can the bishop be taken out of this position? So we have this move h5 being played. So it looks as though, is the bishop really going to be wrenched out here? There's a key thing about this position, the route, the actual routing of the king to the bishop. It can go like this. It can go this way to reach f3 with the same speed as it can via e2. And that's quite interesting. That could have been one element of a miscalculation here, that this route taken to get to g2 can be done two ways. And there's an upside of a particular route here that potentially they're slightly different, these routes. Okay, now in the game actually king e2 was played, sorry, and there's also another route here to get to g2, so you can either go via f1 or by f3. Sorry, I think that's the more significant alternative route once you're on e2. So the king actually goes to e2, and now we've got two routes, right? To get to g2, we can actually go via f3 or we can go via f1. And yes, the subtlety is evidenced here, actually. is if we go via f3 in this position, let's see, h4, going via f3 is actually superior than going via f1. Clearly, on king f1, there's a little trick here. Even though the bishop might appear trapped here, this position, this is not so convincing. This didn't happen in the game. The king went via f3. This is a very subtle distinction. Well, it protects g3. So this requires a bit of trickiness. Let's have a quick look at this position. Is the bishop trapped here? No, because king g2, I think we can just take g takes f2, and we're queening. If king takes, we just queen. And so that would be quite a problem, actually, this position here after g takes f2. It's just winning for black, actually. Surely it couldn't have been this miscalculation that Fischer had visualized the wrong route to get to g2. But to be honest, yes, I think I have seen an article which did indicate that might have been an element of it. Here, I mean, any other alternatives? f3, well, we can just get the bishop out, if nothing else. At minimum, we can just get the bishop out. So that's really out of the question. But by going to f3, now the bishop is really trapped. But it gets still quite interesting here. King e7 was played. If h takes g3, f takes, yes, isn't the bishop just being trapped? I would say so here, the bishop is being trapped. So in the game we have actually king e7. Another possibility, let's have a look at another possibility here. h3. On h3, the king on f3 is better than f1. This is another possibility. Because here we have king g4. And if bishop g1, king takes h3, bishop takes f2, and you see this is unraveling to be quite complex. But in this position we have bishop d2, and the bishop still remains trapped. We're playing kind of drafts with these bishops movements. The king's surely now coming back to g2 to win the bishop. That really does seem the case. This position is trapping the bishop. So yeah, going to f3 makes all the difference. And in fact, in this position, after king f1, well, yeah, hg is winning, and also h3 is even interesting. Even h3 will be interesting. So yeah, f3 is the most superior route. So has Fischer just lost a bishop? There's some other interesting possibilities some kibitzers have mentioned, like trying to secure a protected passed pawn in this position. Let's see. The problem is king g4 is happening. If g5 here, we can't really do this. I think g4, trying to get a protected passed pawn, takes this position. I don't think this is of great interest. White can simply white can undermine this here. It's not of great interest, even though the king is like stuck there. This is winning for white as well. The king being stuck there, it's the bishop can actually I believe win this. I believe. I'm hoping I'm not mistaken. Can we actually win this with white? Actually, can I ask you? I should have researched this more. Do you think this is winning for white? Out of interest. Actually, it probably isn't. And what have I done wrong? I've stuck the king on h2. I don't think this is the way to play it. You want your king active in an endgame, and the king is completely stuck there on h2. So although we've got this bishop, this wouldn't work. No, that would be a catastrophic way of playing the position. Yeah, that would be a draw. The evaluation is not going anywhere because the king's not going anywhere. So let's just go back and examine this possibility here of creating this position where the king is stuck. So I mentioned g5, king g2, g4. No, let's rewind further. Hold on a sec. h5, king e2 here, king f3, g5, that's really quite interesting. I'm sorry about this. Does anyone know about this variation? Is this actually drawing for black? Okay, I'm going to change the question now to try and get some of you thinking about this. This position here, is g5 actually drawing here with g5? And I wish I'd chased up this analysis now with g5. Is white able to win this position after g5? It seems if we fix the white king's position, white could be a bishop up and not necessarily winning. Boyish 94. It looks as though white can put the bishop on g1 to free the king out of jail. Let's have a look at that concept. Thank you. Thank you. I want to test how awake you guys are. So king g2. Let's have a look. g4 here. Is this so bad? We play f3. Let's do this, fixing this pawn, right? So we take here. We want to play e4, right, to get in bishop d1. How do we get the king out if the bishop's on g1? Oh, we shuffle. We do it like this. Those sliding block puzzles. We shuffle like a sliding block puzzle to get the king out. Is this really going to work? Let's have a look here. As soon as we play e4, so let's try bishop d4. Okay, a6. We'll play b6, right? King d6. We'll play bishop g1. So we've got the sliding block puzzle. Now, I'm glad someone suggested this, right? Oh, sorry. The audio is out of sync. I'm not entirely. Oh dear. I'm not entirely sure what I can do about that. Sorry. Okay. The problem with this is king e5. It seems black might actually be winning this position because we try our sliding block puzzle. We lose this pawn. Bishop here to get the king out, right? But in this position, it seems black is winning. He's got this now dangerous passed pawn. So we try and get the king out, but it's too late. The bishop is now worth a pawn for the moment. We play e4, and funny enough, this position, is quite difficult to play for white, even though white is a bishop up. This looks as though white's going to be put in Zugzwang actually pretty soon. Sorry, that would be a draw e2. Hang on, this position, it's sort of e3. King g2 is just winning. So yeah, it just seems that there might have been a drawing chance with g5. unless anyone can refute this, this was an interesting observation about creating a protected passed pawn to kind of fix the king in this endgame. Is anyone aware of this particular controversy, that black could have drawn this still? I don't know if I've just made it up, but I did see it as some comments made, you know, with kibitzers at chess games, you know, earlier in the day when I was checking out the comments on this game. So that's very interesting. But you know, Fischer didn't go for this protected passed pawn scenario. So we have King E7 in the game, and the bishop is munchable now. It seems the bishop is munchable. King G2, HG F takes, and it just gives itself up. Bishop takes G3, King takes. So this situation, black has 2 extra pawns, and it seems after King D6, this could be a problem. If he loses another pawn like this is going to be trouble. But a very, very strong move was played here to protect the pawn, the B5 pawn. Just A4. I think it not just protects the pawn in advance, it prepares the potential for things like bishop A3 check. Bishop A3 check here might be the strongest move. And bishop F8. So yeah, it's very, very useful to play A4 here to create this bishop A3 check resource. So we see now King D5, and it looks as though black is intending this walk to try and get one of these pawns to make things difficult for white. Bishop A3, or going this way, King E4. But now Bishop C5. And here, I think black has very limited options, actually. If B6, I think we could just take this and create a winning passed pawn with A5. The king is now too far away to stop this B6 winning. So, actually, an unpleasant this thing to have to do, A6. Because now, B6 keeps quite a far pawn, only 2 squares from queening. F5, King H4, F4, that's taken, King takes, King H5. So Spassky is going after the G7 pawn here. King F5. Now an element of Zugzwang is occurring, Bishop E3. So stopping G5. King E4, and the bishop just drops back to F2. King F5, Bishop H4, again stopping G5 here, and encouraging this pawn to commit itself. It does actually here with E5, Bishop G5, and this represents a very strong blockade square, E3, where it not only protects the pawn, it's blockading the E pawn, and it reaches the ideal spot in the centre here now, Bishop E3. And also, of course, it stops G5 for the moment as well. So that's pretty ideal, stopping this, blocking the king, blocking the pawn. An ideal spot for that bishop. King F6, King G4. It seems as though this is going downhill now. With the use of Zugzwang, the king can be forced out of key defensive squares. King G5, King D5, yes, this looks like a Zugzwang case. King F5, A5. Still, has to be careful here. The move in the game was Bishop F2, and engines suggest that is one of the strongest moves in the position. Let's just quickly check out King G6. This would allow King C4. And if it takes King B4, getting this pawn, and it might spell trouble getting this pawn. This might actually draw. So great accuracy was required of Spassky to win this position with, you know, the important Zugzwang. So actually, Bishop F2. With bishop f2, the king is hanging around to take this e pawn. So this adventure to take the a pawn is ruled out. King c4, we just take. Pardon me. Let's just make sure of this. No, this is like one of those endgame compositions. I shouldn't speak so quickly and confidently about this position. What would you play here with white? I don't want to. Just imagine it's an endgame composition now. White to play. What would you do here? Anyone? I'll give you 20 seconds. I'm back in one moment. Okay, in this position, taking the pawn might not be as good as actually heading for this guy. If we head for this guy, then we're queening this pawn, right? It seems this might be one of the stronger moves, or king e6, just to head for b7. If we take here, there might be more hassle. It might still be okay for white, but it might be more hassle. It's probably still winning for white anyway, but that'll be the more accurate perhaps. So anyway, after a5 we have bishop f2, g5, king takes g5, king c4, king f5. Is the king taking, or is the king going over here? King b4, the king actually takes. King takes a4, king d5, yes. The pawn is protected here, and it would seem quicker than black's pawn. It's only 2 squares away. King b5, king d6. But not only that, of course, the bishop has got this control of a1 potentially to stop the a pawn. So black would have to waste further time trying to play king c4. Here, black resigned. I think it's fairly pointless to try something like king c4 in any case. Black resigned here. If king c4, white can now actually just use the f6 square to control a1. So a4, it's pointless. Bishop f6. And then just go for this pawn. Okay, so it seems very interesting game. You know, just from a psychological point of view, that in our modern World Chess Championship matches, usually a symmetrical pawn structure would mean a draw. But Fischer kind of made a psychological statement that, you know, he was going to fight even from such positions, even from, you know, dull symmetrical positions. He was going to try and create, you know, possibilities for winning. Okay, it backfired, but what was very, very interesting, you know, it's been written about, you know, that the next round was actually a default, so giving Spassky 2 points basically, without having to do much work. And some have kind of implied that would disturb, you know, Spassky psychologically, because he's kind of a gentleman. If it had been Petrosian, on the other hand, I've read, then Petrosian would have relished it without a second thought. But Spassky, to give Spassky 2 points in such an important match, you know, incredible, but disturbing at the same time. And I don't propose we spend the whole of next week looking at game 2, because it was a default. There were no moves. Fischer just defaulted game 2. He had, you know, raised issues with the sound, you know, sound from you know, microphones or cameras. And he'd been known for this throughout his career. Some thought he was a bit spoiled maybe by organisers, because he was always a bit of a celebrity and kind of got what he wanted. And so the organisers had kind of got used to him, moaning about things, even tiny things. So yeah, we have this default in game 2, and the psychological disturbance, I think cannot be underestimated. I think it's not just a chess match, it's a psychological war. That's these first two gift points. But this game, under very interesting circumstances, that you would have thought a normal person, if you're playing a normal sane grandmaster, then you've got symmetrical pawn structure, all the pieces have virtually come off, it will be a draw. But Fischer's made a kind of weird statement that is a bit crazy, actually. He's made a bit of a statement. Why go for that h2 pawn? A bit of a risk. So what we're going to do, it will carry on with game 3, perhaps next week. So I hope you got something out of this one. It's there's some interesting endgame finesses there. And I hope you found that interesting. Okay, comments or questions on YouTube. Good luck with your chess. See you next week. Thanks very much. So see you next week for game 3.